The message from my father arrived while I was in the middle of coaching 20 teenagers through their first competitive gaming tournament. My phone buzzed with his text. Family announcement this weekend. Your presence is required. My name is Avery, and that single message managed to derail my entire week. I hadn't been home in months. Not since the last disastrous family dinner where my stepmother Karen had spent the entire evening showcasing my half-sister Claire's latest achievements while pointedly ignoring mine. Miss Collins, one of my students, waved frantically from their gaming station. The server's acting weird again. I pocketed my phone, pushing aside the knot forming in my stomach. Coming, Tommy. And remember, in tournament play, we troubleshoot first, panic second. The rest of the day passed in a blur of technical issues and coaching sessions. By closing time, my phone had 3 missed calls from my father and another text. This is important, Avery. Don't skip out like last time. That night, I sat cross-legged on my couch, staring at my phone while my fiancé Ethan cooked dinner in our small kitchen. You're doing that thing again, he said, stirring something that smelled amazing. The one where you overthink everything until your brain explodes. I don't overthink, I muttered, then caught his knowing look. Okay, fine. But Dad never demands family meetings. Something's up. Maybe Claire finally learned how to tie her shoes without help, Ethan joked, then sobered when I didn't laugh. Sorry. Low blow. I sighed, remembering the last time I'd seen my younger half-sister. Claire had spent the entire evening making subtle digs about my little gaming club, and how it must be so fulfilling to play with other people's children since you can't have any of your own. That particular barb still stung. I should go, I said finally. If only to stop Dad from sending the National Guard after me. The drive to my childhood home that weekend felt longer than usual. Each mile marker brought back memories of growing up there after my mom died, of my grandmother Helen raising me while Dad was deployed, Claire's arrival when I was 12, and her mother Karen's immediate campaign to remake our family in her image. I pulled into the circular driveway, noting Claire's shiny new Mercedes parked in my usual spot. Of course. Dad opened the door before I could knock. You're late. Hello to you too, I said, accepting his awkward hug. He smelled the same as always, Old Spice and coffee. Some things never changed. The living room was exactly as I remembered, down to the family photos on the wall. I noticed with a twinge that Grandmother Helen's portrait had been moved to a less prominent spot. Claire sat in Helen's old armchair like she owned it, Karen perched on the armrest beside her. They both wore matching expressions of barely concealed satisfaction that made my skin crawl. Now that we're all here, Dad cleared his throat, Claire has some news. My sister's hand drifted to her stomach in a gesture that made my heart sink before she even opened her mouth. I'm pregnant, Claire announced, her smile sharp as a knife. You're going to be an aunt, Avery. Isn't that wonderful? Now you'll finally get to experience what it's like to have a baby in the family, even if it's not quite the same as having your own. The room went silent. I felt the familiar sting of tears threatening to form but forced them back. Claire's words hung in the air like poison, perfectly crafted to hit where it hurt most. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We thought you should hear it in person. Family first, right? I managed a tight smile, even as my fingers curled into fists at my sides. Congratulations, I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. If you'll excuse me, I need some air. As I walked out onto the porch, I heard Karen's voice drift through the open window. She's always been dramatic. Don't let her ruin your moment, sweetheart. I leaned against the railing, letting the cool evening air clear my head. Something in me had shifted, hardened. This wasn't just about the baby announcement. This was about years of subtle cruelty, of calculated jabs and manufactured competitions. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. You okay? I wasn't. But I would be. 'Cause for the first time in my life, I was done playing nice. I didn't expect Dad to follow me onto the porch, but there he was, closing the screen door behind him with that familiar, careful quietness, the same way he used to check on me after Mom died. Your grandmother used to stand right there, he said, gesturing to where I was leaning against the railing. Watching storms roll in. I remember. I didn't add that I also remembered how Helen was the only one who stood up to Karen when she tried to redecorate the entire house, claiming the porch furniture was too country. The wicker chairs were still here, a small victory in a war of attrition. Karen's organizing a baby shower next month, Dad said, his voice carefully neutral. She wants to do it here. Course she did. The same house where Helen had raised me, where I'd spent countless hours reading in the window seat that Karen had later converted into a display case for Claire's cheerleading trophies. You don't have to come, he added quickly. Don't I? I turned to face him. Won't it look bad if the aunt doesn't show up? Won't Karen have something to say about that? He flinched. Avery. The screen door creaked open and Claire waddled out, one hand on her barely visible bump. Daddy, Mom wants to know if you'll grab more wine from the cellar. The good stuff, not the cheap bottles Avery brought last time. I hadn't brought any wine last time. Claire knew that. Sure, princess. Dad disappeared inside, leaving us alone. Claire's sweet smile dropped the instant he was gone. You know, you could at least pretend to be happy for me. I am happy for you, I lied. Thrilled, even. Really? Because you stormed out pretty quickly after my announcement. I needed air. You needed attention, she corrected, moving closer. Just like always. Poor infertile Avery. Can't stand someone else being the center of attention for once. My nails dug into my palms. Is that what you think this is about? I think it's about what everything's always been about with you. Jealousy. She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. You're jealous that I can have what you can't. That I'm giving Dad his first grandchild. That Mom loves me more than. Karen isn't my mother, I cut in. And Helen left me the house. Claire's face went white. What? I hadn't meant to say it. The paperwork had arrived last week, Helen's final gift, held in trust until my 28th birthday. I'd been waiting for the right time to tell everyone, but Claire's smug superiority had cracked something in me. The house is mine, I said, the words tasting like victory. Grandmother Helen left it to me in her will. I get full ownership next month. Claire's hands trembled. You're lying. Ask Dad. He's known for years. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. So, maybe you should rethink having your baby shower here. Wouldn't want to impose. The screen door slammed open. Karen stood there, her face twisted with rage. I heard everything, she hissed. How dare you? How dare I what? Inherit my grandmother's house? Claire is pregnant. This is her moment, and you're trying to ruin it with your spiteful little power play. Karen. Dad appeared behind her, holding a wine bottle. What's going on? Your daughter is trying to kick us out of our home. That's not what I said, I protested, but Claire was already crying, her hands protectively covering her stomach. The stress isn't good for the baby, she sobbed. She's trying to hurt my baby. Dad looked between us, lost. Avery, maybe we should discuss this another time. Of course, I said quietly. Take care of your pregnant daughter. It's what you do best. I walked to my car, ignoring Karen's continued accusations and Dad's weak attempts to call me back. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Claire in my rearview mirror. She wasn't crying anymore. Instead, she was watching me leave with the same calculating expression she'd worn when she'd announced her pregnancy. This wasn't over. We both knew it. But for the first time, I had something she wanted. And I intended to use it. The message that broke me came from Sarah, my oldest student's mother, 3 days after the family dinner. She wanted to discuss some concerns about my mentorship program. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, expecting questions about tournament schedules or equipment fees. I was wrong. I heard some disturbing things, Sarah said, stirring her untouched latte. About your situation. My stomach dropped. My situation? Your sister Claire reached out to several parents. She mentioned your condition might affect your ability to relate to children properly. Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. She suggested we might want to consider other programs. The coffee shop's ambient chatter faded to white noise. Claire hadn't just attacked me personally, she'd gone after my business, my students, everything I'd built. My infertility has nothing to do with my ability to teach, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Tommy's tournament rankings have improved by 30% since he started with us. I know, but what? Claire's pregnant, so suddenly she's an expert on children? Sarah shifted uncomfortably. She mentioned she's starting her own youth program. Something more traditional, less competitive. Of course she was. Claire had never shown any interest in gaming or coaching before, but now that she knew it mattered to me, I stood up, nearly knocking over my chair. Excuse me. I need to make a call. Sighed, I pressed my forehead against the cool brick wall and dialed Claire's number. She answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting. Hello, sister dear. How are you coping with the house news? Cut the act, I snapped. I know what you're doing. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, I'm just looking out for children's best interests. After all, what would our grandmother think about you using her house to run a business teaching kids to waste their lives playing games? Don't you dare bring Helen into this. Why not? She's the reason you think you're better than everyone else. Perfect Avery, Helen's favorite, too good for family now that she has her precious inheritance. Is that what this is about? You're sabotaging my business because you're jealous of a house? Claire's laugh was bitter. I'm protecting vulnerable children from someone who can't possibly understand what it means to be a mother. You should thank me, really. Now you won't have to pretend anymore. I ended the call before I could say something I'd regret. My phone immediately buzzed with a text from Claire. By the way, I've already got 5 of your students' parents interested in my new program. Funny how quickly they change their minds when they learn the truth about you. I slumped against the wall, fighting back tears. Years of work, of building trust with these families, and Claire was destroying it all with a few well-placed words. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. Hey, you okay? Your afternoon class is starting soon. Class. I'd almost forgotten. I had 6 teenagers waiting to learn advanced strategy techniques, kids who trusted me, who'd improved under my guidance despite my condition. I straightened up, wiping my eyes. Claire wanted to play dirty? Fine. But she'd forgotten something important. I'd learned strategy from the best. And Helen hadn't just left me a house. She'd left me her entire gaming collection, including journals full of tournament notes dating back decades. I texted Ethan back. I'm good. Actually, I have an idea. Remember that charity tournament we talked about? The one you said was too ambitious? Things change. How fast can you set up a live stream event? And can you get your developer friends involved? Give me 48 hours. What are you planning? I smiled, thinking of Claire's smug face when she thought she'd won. Teaching my sister a lesson about games. And family. And why you should never underestimate someone just because they can't have children. As I walked back to my car, I felt lighter than I had in days. Claire thought she could use my infertility against me. She was about to learn that some battles aren't won by having the right biology, they're won by having the right strategy. And I'd been strategizing my whole life. I found the adoption pamphlets while cleaning up after dinner. Ethan had hidden them under a stack of gaming magazines, but they spilled across the kitchen counter when I moved them, glossy pages full of smiling families and promises of new beginnings. I was going to bring it up differently, Ethan said from the doorway, making me jump. Maybe over wine. Or after the charity tournament. My fingers traced the edge of a pamphlet. How long have you been thinking about this? Since before Claire's announcement. He moved closer, careful, like I might bolt. I know the timing seems reactive, but what? You thought now would be perfect? Well, my sister is actively trying to destroy everything I've built because she thinks I'm unfit to be around children. That's exactly why we should consider it. Ethan picked up one of the pamphlets. To prove her wrong. To show everyone that family isn't about biology or pregnancy announcements. It's about love and choice. My phone buzzed, another parent withdrawing from the program. Third one this week. Claire would use it against us, I said quietly. She'd say we're only doing it to compete with her pregnancy. To steal her spotlight. Since when do you care what Claire thinks? Since she started poisoning my entire life. The words burst out louder than intended. She's turning everyone against me, Ethan. Parents, Dad, even my own students are starting to doubt me. And now you want to add adoption scrutiny to that mix? I want to build a future with you, he said. One that isn't defined by what Claire does or doesn't do. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Dad. Claire's having complications. Doctor ordered bed rest. She's staying at the house. Thought you should know. Of course she was staying at the house. My house. The one Helen left to me. She's moving in, I said, showing Ethan the message. She's actually moving into the house before I can even claim it. Can she do that? Dad's still technically the executor until my birthday next month. He can let anyone stay there he wants. I laughed, the sound hollow. Want to bet she'll have redecorated my old room for the nursery before I get the keys? Ethan was quiet for a moment then. Maybe we should move. What? After the tournament. After you get the house. We could sell it, move somewhere Claire can't reach us. Start fresh, maybe look into adoption agencies in another state. Run away, you mean? I stared at the pamphlets, at all those perfect families smiling up at me. Let Claire win. Let her have an empty victory while we build something real. Another text from Dad. Karen's organizing a baby shower here next week. Claire really wants you there. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I picked up one of the adoption pamphlets, really looking at it this time. A young couple played with their adopted daughter, their faces bright with genuine joy. No forced smiles, no calculated performances. Just family. Helen always said the house was meant to be a home, I said slowly. Not a weapon. What are you thinking? I reached for my laptop. I'm thinking it's time to change the game. Claire wants to play happy families? Fine. But first, we're going to show everyone what real family support looks like. I pulled up the charity tournament plans we'd been working on. What if we made it bigger? Not just gaming, a full community event. Supporting local adoption agencies, foster care programs. Using Claire's tactics against her? No. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Using my grandmother's strategy. She always said the best way to win isn't to tear others down. It's to build something so beautiful they can't ignore it. Ethan grinned. I love it when you get that look. What's the first move? I picked up my phone, ignoring Dad's text to compose a different message. This one to all my remaining students' parents. Invitation to a special announcement. Time to show you what our program is really about. Claire wanted war? I'd give her something better, hope. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find some for myself along the way. The lawyer's office felt too small for the 5 of us. Dad sat between Claire and me, while Karen hovered protectively behind Claire's chair. The inheritance paperwork lay unopened on Mr. Peterson's desk, but that wasn't why we were here. Let me understand this correctly, Mr. Peterson said, adjusting his glasses. Miss Collins, you're requesting an early transfer of property ownership due to unauthorized renovations? I placed my phone on his desk, playing the video Tommy's mom had sent me yesterday. The footage showed Karen directing workers at the house, supervising as they carried Helen's antique furniture out to a waiting truck. They're gutting my grandmother's home, I said. Without permission. We're preparing the nursery, Karen cut in. Richard approved it. Dad shifted uncomfortably. I didn't realize they were removing Helen's things. Of course you didn't. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. You never notice anything when it comes to Claire. Claire's hand moved protectively over her bump. The doctor said stress isn't good for the baby. And that old furniture was full of dust, and that furniture was my inheritance. My voice cracked. Everything in that house meant something. Every piece had a story. Stories don't matter to a baby, Claire said softly, her eyes gleaming with false concern. But I understand why you're so attached. It must be hard knowing you'll never have a real family to pass these things down to. The room went silent. Even Karen looked shocked at Claire's cruelty. Miss Collins, Mr. Peterson cleared his throat, legally speaking, until your 28th birthday next month, your father retains executor rights. However, given the circumstances... My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Local news picked up the charity tournament story. They want to interview you about combining gaming with adoption awareness. Something clicked in my mind. I'd like to make a proposal, I said, sitting straighter. Dad, you want peace in the family. Claire, you want the nursery. Fine. Keep the house for now. Claire's triumphant smile lasted exactly 3 seconds. But I'm hosting my charity tournament there next week. A full media event highlighting local adoption services and foster care programs. After all, I met Claire's eyes. It's still legally Dad's house, and he always taught us about giving back to the community. Right, Dad? Dad's military posture returned, the way it always did when he was cornered. That seems reasonable. You can't be serious, Karen sputtered. Claire needs rest, not some noisy gaming circus. The event will be in the backyard, I said. Claire can rest upstairs. Unless there's some reason you don't want the community seeing inside the house. Claire's face went pale. She knew exactly what I was implying. If they refused, people would question why. Especially after Claire had spent weeks spreading rumors about my fitness to work with children. I think it's a wonderful idea, Mr. Peterson said, clearly enjoying the drama. Very much in keeping with Helen's philanthropic spirit. Fine, Claire snapped. Have your little event. But don't think this changes anything. That house will never be yours in the way that really matters. You'll never fill it with family the way I will. I stood up, gathering my things. You know what, Claire? You're right. I won't fill it with family, because family isn't about filling spaces. It's about building connections. Something Grandmother Helen tried to teach us, though clearly only one of us was listening. As I reached the door, Dad called out, Avery, wait! The event team will be there Monday to set up, I said without turning around. Try not to remove any more of Helen's memories before then. Outside, my hands shook as I texted Ethan. It's done. Plan B is go. His reply was immediate. You sure about this? Once we start, I looked back at the lawyer's office, where Claire was already playing the victim for Dad again. She thought she'd won by taking Helen's house. She had no idea that some victories came disguised as losses. I'm sure, I typed. Time to show everyone what real family looks like. And this time I had more than just games up my sleeve. I had truth. The charity tournament was supposed to be my moment of triumph. Instead, I stood frozen in Helen's backyard, now barely recognizable under Karen's garden party decorations, watching Claire steal even this from me. As someone who truly understands the importance of nurturing children, Claire was saying to the local news reporter, one hand resting on her visible bump, I'm excited to announce my own youth mentorship program, one that focuses on traditional values and real family connections. The camera panned to capture the crowd's approving nods. Several of my former students' parents stood among them, including Sarah, who couldn't quite meet my eyes. Of course, Claire continued, her voice dripping with false concern. We'll welcome all children, even those from alternative family structures. After all, Everyone deserves guidance from someone who understands traditional family values. Ethan's hand found mine, squeezing tight. We can still shut this down. It's your event, your grandmother's property. Actually, Karen stepped forward, brandishing a paper. We have something to share about that. She smiled at the reporter. Richard, dear, would you like to make the announcement? Dad emerged from the crowd, looking uncomfortable but determined. Given Claire's condition and her new community program, we've decided to transfer ownership of the house to her permanently. The paperwork was filed this morning. The world tilted sideways. You can't, I whispered, but the microphones picked it up. The inheritance was contingent on several factors, Karen cut in smoothly, including the property's continued use for family purposes. Richard and I agree that Claire's program better serves that intention. Claire's triumphant smile felt like a knife. We're keeping Helen's legacy alive the way she would have wanted, by nurturing future generations. Not through video games. I spotted Helen's chest set through the window, still sitting in its familiar spot. The one thing they hadn't packed away yet. My vision blurred. You want to talk about Helen's legacy? My voice shook. Let's talk about what she really wanted. Let's talk about the letter she left. Commotion near the house cut me off. Tommy, my youngest student, had slipped inside and was now running back out, Helen's chest set clutched in his arms. Miss Collins! I saved it before they could. He tripped. The antique chess set flew from his hands in slow motion. Pieces scattered across the patio like broken dreams. The hand-carved board splitting with a crack that felt like Helen's heart breaking all over again. This is exactly why children need proper supervision, Claire announced to the crowd. From people who understand. Shut up. The words came out raw. Just shut up, Claire. You didn't even know her. You spent every holiday at your mom's parents' house. You never sat with Helen, never learned her stories, never. But I'm giving her what she always wanted, Claire interrupted. A real family in her home. Children. A future. What can you offer except broken games and empty rooms? Cameras were still rolling. My students watched with wide eyes. Everything I'd built, everything I'd planned, lay shattered like the chess pieces at my feet. I think we're done here, Karen announced, moving to usher the reporters toward Claire. We'll have a proper press release about the new program tomorrow. Dad stepped toward me, conflict written across his face. Avery, don't. I backed away, nearly tripping over the chess pieces. Just don't. I turned and ran, ignoring Ethan's calls, ignoring the murmurs from the crowd. Behind me, I heard Claire's voice rise again, as I was saying about traditional family values. My car wouldn't start. Of course it wouldn't. I slammed my hands against the steering wheel, finally letting the tears fall. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I opened it, expecting more disaster. Instead, I found a photo, Helen's desk drawer, partially open, revealing a sealed envelope with my name on it. Below the photo was a message. Found this while they were packing up. Thought you should know. The moving guy. Through my tears, I smiled. Maybe Helen had one last move to play after all. Breaking into my own inheritance wasn't exactly how I'd planned to spend the evening, but here I was, picking the lock to Helen's study while Ethan kept watch. The moving truck wouldn't arrive until morning. This was my last chance. Someone's coming, Ethan whispered. I finally felt the lock click. 2 minutes. That's all I need. Claire's voice drifted up the stairs. I just need to grab something from the study. The decorator wants to see. The door opened before I could hide. Claire stood there, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the doorframe. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I knew it, she said, her voice rising. Mom! Dad! Avery's trying to steal. The letter. I held up my phone, showing her the photo. That's all I want. The one in Helen's desk. There is no letter. But her eyes darted to the drawer. Karen's footsteps thundered up the stairs. I lunged for the desk, yanking the drawer open as Claire screamed, "She's attacking me!" The envelope was there, just as the photo showed. I grabbed it just as Karen burst in, Dad right behind her. "She pushed me." Claire stumbled backward dramatically, but her heel caught the antique rug. This time, her fall wasn't staged. She went down hard, crying out in genuine pain. "Claire!" Karen rushed to her side while Dad blocked the doorway, his face a storm of confusion and anger. "I never touched her," I said, backing away. "Check the security cameras." Helen had them installed everywhere, remember? To protect her antiques. Claire's face went white. "The cameras are working perfectly," Ethan cut in, holding up his phone. "I'm a developer, remember? Accessing their feed was pretty easy. Especially since Avery still had Helen's passwords." "Show me," Dad demanded. Ethan pulled up the footage. We watched in silence as it showed me entering the study, Claire following, and her deliberate stumble, followed by the real fall that no one had caused. "You've been recording us?" Karen's voice shook with rage. "Invading our privacy?" "No," I said, opening Helen's letter. "I've been protecting her legacy. The way she taught me." The letter was short but devastating. Helen had known about Claire and Karen's manipulations. She'd left the house to me with specific conditions, including one that said if anyone tried to contest the inheritance through legal means, everything would be donated to a children's charity instead. "You can't prove when that was written," Karen snapped. "We'll challenge it." "Check the metadata on the security footage," Ethan said quietly. Helen recorded herself writing and sealing this letter 3 days before she died. She knew exactly what would happen. Claire struggled to sit up, her face twisted with pain and fury. "This doesn't change anything. I'm still giving Dad what you never could, a real family, a grandchild, a future." "Claire," Dad's voice cracked. "Stop." We all turned to him. He looked older suddenly, defeated. "I watched the footage," he said. "All of it. The way you've been treating your sister, the things you've said about her students, her business." He shook his head. "Helen was right. I've been blind." "Richard," Karen started, but he held up his hand. "The house stays with Avery, as Helen wanted. And Claire." He finally met my eyes. "You owe your sister an apology." Claire's laugh was bitter. "For what? For wanting what's rightfully mine? For trying to build something real instead of playing games?" "That's exactly what Helen was afraid of," I said, reading from the letter. "Family isn't about ownership or control. It's about nurturing growth, supporting dreams, and understanding that love multiplies. It doesn't divide." I folded the letter carefully. "Keep the furniture you moved. Keep the renovations. But the house is mine. And I know exactly what I'm going to do with it." "What's that?" Claire spat. I smiled, thinking of the adoption pamphlets waiting at home. "I'm going to fill it with family. Just not the kind you understand." As I walked out, I heard Dad following. Maybe some bridges weren't completely burned after all. But first, I had a real legacy to build. 6 months later, I stood in Helen's study, my study now, watching the sunset paint the walls gold. The room still held her presence, though I'd made some changes. Her chess set, carefully restored, sat beside my gaming equipment. Old and new, just like she would have wanted. The sound of children laughing drifted up from the backyard. My advanced gaming class was having their graduation ceremony, complete with proud parents and a local news crew. This time, the coverage was about our program's success, not family drama. "Miss Collins." Tommy poked his head in. "They're ready for the presentation." "Thanks, buddy. I'll be right down." He hesitated. "Is it true? About you and Mr. Brooks adopting?" "News travels fast," I smiled. "We're just starting the process. It's going to take time." "Cool." He grinned. You're already pretty good at the mom stuff anyway. As he bounded away, I caught my reflection in Helen's old mirror. I looked different somehow, stronger maybe. More like her than ever. Dad was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. We'd been rebuilding slowly, coffee dates and careful conversations. Today was the first time he'd visited the house since everything happened. Karen left, he said quietly, after Claire's baby shower last week. Said she couldn't handle the shame of. He trailed off. The video going public? The security footage had leaked somehow, not through Ethan or me, showing Claire's manipulations and lies. Her traditional values program had collapsed overnight. Dad nodded. Claire's staying with her aunt in Colorado. Says she needs space to find herself before the baby comes. He met my eyes. She asked about you. Did she? Wanted to know if you'd really turn the house into some kind of gaming orphanage, her words. I laughed. Just a regular gaming academy. Though we do offer scholarships now, thanks to Helen's foundation. Through the window, I could see Ethan setting up the presentation screen, my students helping him arrange chairs. Sarah, who'd returned with a heartfelt apology after the truth came out, was organizing refreshments. Helen would be proud, Dad said. Not just of this, but of how you handled everything. You didn't let anger win. No, I agreed. I let love win. The way she taught me. We walked outside together. The evening air was warm, carrying the scent of Helen's roses, the one part of the garden I hadn't changed. As my students gathered for the ceremony, I noticed a familiar figure standing at the gate. Claire. She looked smaller somehow, less certain. When our eyes met, she didn't smile or wave. She just watched, one hand resting on her bump, as I awarded certificates and praised each student's achievements. As I announced our new adoption support initiative, partnering with local agencies to help families navigate the system. When the ceremony ended, I expected her to leave. Instead, she walked to Helen's rose garden, touching a bloom gently. She taught me about these once, Claire said as I approached. I pretended not to care, but I remembered everything she said. Why are you here? I don't know. She looked lost. Maybe to see what real legacy looks like. We stood in silence, the roses swaying between us like memories. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said finally. But my baby. Your niece. I don't want her growing up thinking family is about winning and losing. It's not, I said. It's about growing. Sometimes together, sometimes apart. She nodded once, then turned to leave. The roses look good, she said softly. You take care of them like she did. I watched her go, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. We were both Helen's roses, grown in different gardens. Later, as Ethan and I cleaned up, he asked, "You okay?" I looked around at my home, at the gaming equipment and chess sets, at the adoption paperwork on my desk, at Helen's roses blooming in the twilight, at all the different ways love could grow. Yeah, I said. I'm exactly where I need to be. Family, I'd learned, wasn't about blood or birthright. It was about choosing to nurture what matters, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Just like Helen always said.